Hi, Stephen.
Hey, Cian.
Has this ever happened to you? It's movie night. You have a couple of the boys over, and you're trying to figure out what we're going to watch. One of the guys says he wants to put on Ran, Akira Kurosawa.
Amazing movie.
Amazing movie. You're 6 beers deep. You can't read subtitles.
Oh, no. There's a lot going on in Ran.
Now, your other friend says, hey, let's put on Showgirls, because Showgirls is having a revival at the moment.
There's too little well, actually, there's almost too much and too little going on in Showgirls. It's
you
just
can't
trash.
do that.
It's
No,
trash.
no. So you have two options. One's too hot, one's too cold. What do you need?
Something right in the middle there.
Something good, not great.
Something good, not great.
It's Good Not Great, the movie review podcast where we are talking about the very, very best of the just all right, the absolute top of the middle of the pile. If last year's Godzilla -1 was like having a kaiju rescue you and your friends from space aliens, and Godzilla 1998 was like having your family murdered by a kaiju, then the film we're talking about today is like combating a kaiju by awakening an older, ancient, more powerful kaiju and hoping for the best. It's Godzilla 2014.
Great intro. I love it.
Thank you. I worked on that way too hard.
You are not fooling anybody when you say that what happened was a natural disaster. You're lying. It was not an earthquake. It wasn't a typhoon. Because what's really happening is that you're hiding something out there. And it is going to send us back to the Stone Age.
So we thought with the new movie Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire hitting theaters soon, the latest movie in the MonsterVerse, we thought we'd take it all the way back to 2014 to see where this MonsterVerse kicked off. So that was with Gareth Edwards' Godzilla. It was then followed by Kong Skull Island and Godzilla King of the Monsters, and then Godzilla vs. Kong. And now this Godzilla X Kong, where they're buddies now, and they're teaming up to fight something.
It's kind of fitting as well, because out of the MonsterVerse movies, Godzilla vs. Kong was the only one I had seen.
Right,
so
yeah.
I was kind of, I might go back and watch the rest of them before the new one comes out.
Whereas I've been here from the start. I think I've seen everyone in the cinema except for Godzilla vs. Kong, because COVID had the cinema shut. But yeah, this was very exciting when we first heard of it, because the first, the aforementioned 1998 Godzilla was the only American Godzilla movie, whereas obviously they've been making dozens of these in Japan since 1954. So we're actually
having a bit of a revival at the moment, which
Yeah.
Shin Godzilla was very popular even over in the West, and Godzilla -1 taking an Academy Award.
Yeah, for the first time in 70 years, Godzilla is now an Academy Award winner.
Absolutely.
With Godzilla -1 taking home the Best Visual Effects Oscar
Deserved.
this year. Very deserved.
Although, what else was up for Best Visual Effects? I didn't think about it too much.
There was Guardians of the Galaxy, there was Mission Impossible 7, and The Creator, which was also directed by Gareth Edwards, the director of the 2014 Godzilla.
It's all connected.
So a little bit of background there. Gareth Edwards was a VFX artist. That was his job. And then he made this very low budget, made for $500,000, this movie Monsters in 2010. Did you go see Monsters?
No, I didn't see Monsters.
Yeah, I went to see Monsters in the cinema. Really enjoyed it. And the budget was so low, he did all of the VFX in After Effects on his laptop himself. And there's a lot of VFX in that movie.
Okay.
So he seemed like it's about giant monsters. It's got a very kind of down-to-earth, grounded feel. And it just felt like, especially after the silliness of the 98 version, felt like if you're going to do an American Godzilla movie and make it more serious, this was the way to do it. He was a good director, seemed a good fit. So we have Godzilla 2014, written by Gareth Edwards, Dave Callahan, and Max Borenstein, starring Bryan Cranston, Sally Hawkins, Ken Watanabe, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, and Elizabeth Olsen. So does it fit the category of good, not great? I remember when this movie came out, it was very divisive.
Yeah.
A lot of people liked it, and a lot of people really didn't like it.
I do think as well, because there was so much hype when the trailer
Yes,
came out.
yeah.
Like, people were really pumped, and then a lot of people felt it didn't deliver.
Yeah, like, I mean, just to kind of say about the marketing as well, because it was brilliant. The first trailer had this beautiful and eerie halo jump sequence, if you
Yes.
remember, with a dust and smoke consumed San Francisco, and all the trailers, like pretty much right up to release, they didn't give you a full reveal of the new look Godzilla. You
Yeah.
get a bit of a tail here. You get one of the other monsters' talons here. So it was all kind of kept very secret, very kind of like Cloverfield. So it was really getting you hyped of like what are these monsters? Like I remember people like dissecting the trailers, being like, there's a wooden bird hanging from this window in the corner of this frame here. It's definitely Rodan is going to be the baddie in this movie, and it wasn't at all. But yeah, there was a huge amount of hype, and then it came out, and so we have some scores here. We have a 76% on Rotten Tomatoes. All right, pretty good.
Yeah, not bad at all.
A 6.4 on IMDb.
Very middle of the road for
Very
IMDb.
middle, yeah. 62% on Metacritic and 3.0 on the dot out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Absolutely, yeah. Just right down the middle.
So this definitely is a contender for a good, not great movie.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. We'll
Right.
get into it.
All right, so the story of Godzilla. One thing I did like to say for someone who didn't know all of the MonsterVerse lore regarding like Monarch and stuff, it opens with a very well done title sequence where it's like 1950s film, a nuclear test. You see like the Monarch logo. You see like maybe little glimpses of, do you see like a little glimpse of a Godzilla dorsal?
You do,
know?
yeah. You see the spines and stuff
Yeah.
through the water, and it's, all kind of made to look like 1950s footage,
Yeah.
spliced in with some actual nuclear test footage. It's a very well done opening
Yeah,
title
very good
sequence.
use of time as well, where it's just like flying into it. Here's the credits for everyone involved, and then here's just like your quick background. But we open with Bryan Cranston in a very bad wig.
Yeah, real bad wig.
Yeah,
Real bad wig.
apparently that is because this was shot very close to filming the final season of Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
So
it
was-
must have been.
Yeah.
like- and this was his first major role post Breaking Bad, so that actually lended a huge amount of hype to the movie as well, because everyone was just so mad about Breaking Bad at the time. It's like, whatever Bryan Cranston does next, it's going to be amazing.
He
and
was
he's
a
gonna be
big draw
amazing
for
in
it, yeah.
Yeah.
So Bryan Cranston is some form of nuclear scientist in
he's-
Japan.
He's a nuclear scientist living with his family in Japan. His wife's also a nuclear scientist of some description.
And they are going to work. Bryan Cranston, very work-obsessed kind of dad. They're clearly setting up that he's got his mind on the business too much. He's neglecting the wife and kid. Maybe not neglecting, but
Yeah.
And then they go to work, and basically they go to work. Bryan Cranston's wife has to go down into a nuclear reactor, all suited up, and something massive breaches the reactor. A Chernobyl level style
Event.
is occurring, and you have this great sequence where Bryan Cranston, obviously because his wife and his co-workers are down there, they're telling him they need to seal off the reactor to stop radiation escaping, but that would lock them in and leave them to their death. So we have this scene where he has to run through the lab, and I thought the run was kind of funny.
He's doing his best Tom Cruise run, and he's not Tom Cruise.
He's not
like,
Tom
you can tell
Cruise.
that's what he's got in his head. I've got to do the big kind of robotic
Yeah.
Terminator T-1000 style arm movements, and it's a 50-year-old
But
Bryan
it is,
Cranston. Like,
but it is blocked very well, where you have everyone running to screen right and him in the foreground
Yes.
tearing the screen left.
yeah,
He gets to the reactor door. He's on the walkie-talkie. They're trying to escape from the reactor, and they can't. And then the wife has to get onto the radio to him and be like, "You need to seal the reactor door, otherwise everyone is going to die." The big wall of nuclear gas is coming towards him, and then he does a scream that is fully just Hal from Malcolm in the
Yeah,
Middle. He
yeah.
goes, "Oh!"
he's acting so hard in this movie, almost too hard, where it's becoming silly. But acting very hard. And to be honest, it actually does work for me. I actually really enjoy this sequence where then, he screams, close the door, and then his wife is just on the other side, and they just kind of have to do a goodbye through this little porthole, and he's just watching her die. He's literally sealed her fate.
Yeah. And so from that, we get a pretty hard, immediate cut to 15 years later, where we meet Aaron Taylor Johnson, who is his name John Ford?
I think so.
His last name's Ford, anyway.
Yeah.
But we meet Aaron Taylor Johnson, who's Bryan Cranston's son, all grown up.
All grown up.
I have a note here from my girlfriend we were watching, which is, he grew up sexy, hooray, but he joined the army, boo.
Yeah, fair enough.
He is a grown up now. He's in the military, and he's married to Elizabeth Olsen, who is a nurse.
Or doctor.
Or doctor.
It's unclear.
She's just wearing scrubs, and maybe I shouldn't have assumed she was a nurse.
I know, but I honestly don't know. Maybe she's a nurse, maybe she's a doctor. I don't think it's ever said.
No, because the movie
She's
is like,
just
you
in
don't
scrubs and
care.
works in a hospital with patients.
Yeah,
like.
so he's grown up, he's married, he has his own son, he is on leave from the army. They mention he's been away for a while. And Elizabeth Olsen basically says to him, your dad, Bryan Cranston, has been arrested in Japan, and you need to go talk to him and see if he's all right, because he definitely doesn't seem okay. And Aaron Taylor Johnson, he kind of doesn't want to, it's like his dad's a bit of a lost cause. There's clearly been some rift since we saw them last.
Yeah, I think the idea that they kind of do is that for 15 years now, Bryan Cranston has been trying to uncover the mystery of what happened at the nuclear plant, because he's like, it wasn't just an earthquake that did this. This was something else.
Yeah.
They're trying to cover it up. I know that I'm not responsible for my wife's death. This is something else's fault.
Yeah.
Which is actually quite a good dramatic in.
Yeah, I mean, it sets up a great obstacle before you start bringing in monsters.
Yeah.
The idea of like, and I think as well, we might talk about this more later, about like how Godzilla has always represented current politics.
Yeah.
Famously, the first film ever is an allegory for the atomic bomb and the atomic age, and but I thought for a while like there could be a very fun angle in this of like, we're such a even 10 years ago, we're such a conspiratorial society. We think that there's an evil cover up around every corner, so like maybe that could have been an obstacle. But it's not.
It's not, no. So we also have Ken Watanabe and Sally Hawkins are monarch scientists. So they have been summoned to somewhere in Southeast Asia. It's
the Philippines,
The
I think.
Philippines, thank you. And they uncover this giant skeleton underground, as well as a nest for something. So they're uncovering that, and then we're back to
Aaron Taylor Johnson lands in Japan, and he's bailing Bryan Cranston out of Japanese jail. There's a very funny shot of a Japanese couple picking up their goth son, like, and he's, they're like yelling at him, and I was just like, it's illegal to be a goth in Tokyo. But so he bails Bryan Cranston out of jail, and then they go back to Bryan Cranston's apartment, and he's gone full InfoWars. He's got the news clippings up on the wall. The great how do you establish that someone's checked out of their family line? How's my grandson? He must be 3. And then Aaron Taylor Johnson's like, he's 6.
Yeah.
You fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And Bryan Cranston basically says to him, look, I need to go back to our old house that was sealed off in a quarantine zone after that nuclear accident 15 years ago. I need to get my old data, because he thinks he's after discovering that what happened 15 years ago could potentially be happening again because of something he's monitoring via echolocation.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron Taylor Johnson doesn't really want to go with him, but it's his dad. He doesn't want to give up on him. So they decide to try and venture back to the house.
Yeah. So then they go back to the house, and it's all overgrown, and there's creepy crawlies and animals everywhere. Lots of fun little references to Mothra and things like that in there.
Yeah.
And then he whips off his gas mask, Close Encounters reference, and the air is fine. He feels vindicated because,
the government have been saying this is a Chernobyl exclusion zone.
Whereas
and
it's fine.
It's totally fine.
Yeah.
I did like again, another thing that I was like, oh, I think they're going to do this. And they did a bit, but not as much as like, I like the idea of if the 50s Godzilla was meant to be the atomic bomb, that like the 2010s Godzilla would be like Fukushima. It would be like a sort of random catastrophic disaster that comes, goes, and people are left with the aftermath for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
But they go into the house, he finds his discs, and then I immediately I started laughing because I was thinking if he finds his disc at his desk and then like immediately burns them. What was on those? Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Why did you have to come all the way back for these reasons? Something about a cover up. Yeah, sure.
So they're arrested then by the government and Monarch. They're taken into custody.
Yeah.
And they
get brought to this big site.
They get brought to this big scientific place.
Yeah.
And this is where it's sealed in. So they're separated while they're being detained, and then Bryan Cranston gives his big monologue that was prominent in the trailer. That was the bit I remember. He references like, there's something out there that's going to send us back to the Stone Age.
Great line with great delivery. Yeah, I remember that so well in the trailer too. Yeah.
And also as well, like if there's a man who can do like an impassioned yell, it's Bryan Cranston. He's got the voice crack just right for it. So where am I now? So they basically explain that what happened 15 years ago was what do they call them? Mutos.
Massive unidentified terrestrial object.
Yeah, so basically giant alien thing.
A
giant monster. Yeah. So they basically explained that what happened there was a giant monster destroyed that reactor when it like hatched from an egg, I think. And they are showing Bryan Cranston then that they're like, we actually have the egg here unhatched. We've been trying to study it. Basically, Aaron Taylor-Johnson is having this moment of being like, oh my God, my dad was right the whole time. He wasn't a conspiracy nut. And then they notice that something is happening with this egg they have at this facility, and they think it's starting to hatch, so they have to neutralize it through like an electric shock current, I think, is it? I can't remember, but basically, they have to neutralize this thing. They kill it, or so they think, but then it manages to hatch anyway.
Yeah.
And the Muto spews forward and starts destroying the building, and they all have to run for their lives.
So this is our first proper monster attack scene, and immediately it's the sense of scale that Gareth Edwards is so good at portraying and directing.
This will come up a lot talking about like the shots in the movie. He's very good at making them giant and intimidating and like unknowable,
and lots of perspective shots. Lots of like Aaron Taylor-Johnson is at this point stuck inside a car or a Jeep or something, so he's watching everything unfold from through the windows of this Jeep, which again makes everything so big because so much of the creature is obscured by the car. So there's a lot of that. There's one of many Jurassic Park references, which I'll get to later on, where like the creature is coming out and it pulls on the cables just like the T-Rex does in Jurassic Park. Lots of Jurassic Park references, and the style as well, very Jurassic Park. So then, the monster is bursting out. The military are running all over the place. They
can't do anything about it.
This giant monster.
This is also the first time where it's like, by the way, there's absolutely no dealing with these guys.
Yeah.
They're fucking huge.
Shoot everything at them. Does not matter. This thing's 300 foot tall.
Aaron Taylor-Johnson eventually gets out of his Jeep, and him and Bryan Cranston are running away when some debris falls on Bryan Cranston.
Well, he's up on a piece of scaffolding.
Oh, right.
With some scientists. Aaron Taylor-Johnson's watching from the ground.
Yeah.
And the Muto knocks down the scaffolding, basically, and we just see Bryan Cranston fall, presumably kind of to his death, and Aaron Taylor-Johnson like screams, "Oh, Dad, no.
Oh, no, you were right, actually.
Yeah, my absentee father, oh, no."
So they get put in a helicopter, they get evacuated. They find Bryan Cranston in the rubble. He's alive.
Just about.
But not for long, because now he's on the stretcher in the helicopter with Aaron Taylor-Johnson, who Bryan Cranston says to him, look after your family, like I never did. And then he dies.
Yeah.
Which was very contentious at time of release.
Yes.
Like,
Very
people
much so.
were very upset
Yeah.
that Bryan Cranston dies, like, I think less than halfway into the runtime.
Way less. I think it's like the first half an hour. But we will come back to that later on.
Yeah.
We'll just move on with the story. So now Aaron Taylor Johnson gets briefed by Ken Watanabe and Sally Hawkins about all this monster stuff, that they work for this organization called Monarch, which has been studying these giant monsters for decades.
Primordial alphas?
Oh, is that it? Yeah.
Well, that's what they call Godzilla.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Mutos count for that.
The Godzilla is the alpha, the apex
alpha.
predator.
Yeah.
So they explain that the 1950s nuclear tests weren't actually nuclear tests. They were trying to kill something. What were they trying to kill? Godzilla. So that is also the only reason they have Ken Watanabe in the movie, is so that he can say Godzilla.
We call him Godzilla.
Yeah. They need a Japanese guy to do
They
it.
needed that. So they do all the exposition, explain how, so we have this, they back in before people, there were giant monsters all over the world. The world was way more radioactive, so these giant monsters fed on the radiation so they could get enormous, and Godzilla was the king of the monsters. So that's your exposition dump. Now we're off to Hawaii, where Aaron Taylor Johnson is going to be flown back as a civilian to his family.
Yeah, kind of strange for the momentum of the film as well, because it's like you've just witnessed Lovecraftian atrocity beyond your wildest comprehension, and you're like, yeah, but I need to get my connecting flight in Honolulu.
Yeah. So we have we're in Hawaii now, and the government have been trying to track the Muto. It's also in Hawaii, causing all kinds of damage.
There is a scene where Aaron Taylor Johnson is on a monorail, I
Yes.
believe.
Yeah.
And,
So this is coming now.
Yeah.
So he's on a monorail, heading to the airport, and meanwhile things are going down. But he's just about getting his connecting flight.
Yeah.
And there's a local family there, and the young child gets separated from his parents. The doors get closed on the train, and the train starts pulling away. And he keeps saying, he's like, "I'll look after the kid." They can't hear him though.
No.
So he just kind of goes and grabs this kid, who I don't think the kid speaks English.
No, he does not.
Yeah. So
Um,
Aaron James says, "I'll look after you." It's like, this is a stranger. This is a stranger that is abducting you.
Yeah.
Um,
They stole this from Mr. Bean's Holiday, by the way.
Did they?
Yeah,
I
I
haven't
mean-
seen Mr. Bean's Holiday in a long time.
Mr. Bean's Holiday is great. Yeah, that's the whole plot of the film, is that there's like a father and son, and they get separated, and the kid's on the train with Mr. Bean, and Mr. Bean's like, "I'll look after him." you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
Goes to show cinematic inspiration can come from many places.
Indeed. So so this is all going down, and now we have some really fucking sick stuff. is
Some
about to
good
start
stuff
going
starting
down.
now.
So the Muto is at the airport now. We've established there's no way to actually fight these things with our own weapons. But we are on the aircraft carrier with Ken Watanabe, and we see Godzilla's spines come out of the water, coming
It's
towards
so
him.
sweet.
And then the spines dip down under the aircraft carrier, come up the other side, and then we cut to a beach. There's a dog barking on a beach, as very reminiscent of what would still be in a lot of people's heads is the footage of the tsunamis in Sri Lanka and everything from 2004,
2004, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you see that the water just rush out,
Yeah.
and then this huge tidal wave comes sweeping through. And Godzilla has caused this tidal wave because he's so massive that as he leaves the water, he's created this massive vacuum for the water to run into and then push all the way out. And we just get these great shots of like these army soldiers on buildings firing flares up in the air, which just illuminate just the side of Godzilla.
I think there's a bit where they shoot these red flares into the air, and then they go up, they spark, and they start coming down. And I think it's like when you see them come down, you cannot see the edges of Godzilla.
Yeah.
He is so big.
Yeah.
Like his body is just filling the
It's
frame.
just scales, just
Yeah.
huge scales being illuminated by these red flares. It's
And
gorgeous.
like that is to the credit of the film, like the way they show the scale with like not being able to see the edges of him taking up an entire frame.
Yeah.
Seeing the tsunami, like there's just so much emphasis put on like, look how fucking big this
Yeah.
guy is.
He is just walking around. He's causing tidal waves. Like, he's so big. So then we're at the airport. Aaron Taylor Johnson's in this monorail, which the Muto is now attacking. He's looking after this little kid that
He's being
adopted,
a hero.
being a hero.
Because he's John Army.
And then there's like a helicopter coming through, but then the Muto, like, it gets knocked out of the air and explodes onto the airport, and we get from inside the airport terminal
A best shot of the film.
best
I'm
shot
calling.
of the film. We're inside the airplane terminal. There's giant glass windows, and we just see the helicopter crash, explode into an airplane. It explodes and sort of dominoes these other airplanes that just keep exploding. We just keep panning to the left, or to the right, sorry, and then giant feet step into frame, and we just see the feet, and then we cut to the Muto. It looks up, everyone's looking up, and then tilt up, full reveal shot
There
from
he is.
feet to head of Godzilla. He roars, and he looks spectacular.
He does. He looks great. In
The
this.
look of him is like
Yeah.
perfect. That's exactly how you do like Godzilla as like a real but still giant monster.
Yeah.
He roars, and then we cut straight away.
Yeah, we're done.
We don't see any battle between them after kind of getting you so hyped up. Instead, we cut to Aaron Taylor Johnson's kid watching TV and playing with his dinosaurs. And
Oh,
on the TV,
yes, you can see the aftermath of the battle. Yeah.
You see like just quick shots from very far away on TV cameras of the Godzilla fighting the Muto, and then the Muto flies off, and that's it. So it's still it's got you amped, but it's still not letting you come yet.
But yeah, so Godzilla is on his way to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Godzilla. This kind of is where we get into what I thought was a bit of a lull in the film.
Yeah.
Strangely, so Aaron Taylor Johnson is helping out the army because he's John Army, and he's Captain Bombs.
Yes.
He's good at bombs,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Hey, Army, I'm Army. Let me help you." He's trying to call Elizabeth Olsen and being like, "You gotta get out of the city," but like she can't reach him, he can't reach her. Do they have a call there for a bit, or is that later?
I don't even know if no, they do have a bit.
They have
of
a call later, yeah. But the army have come up with this plan, which is that they want to have a boat load. They find out that the Mutos and
Oh, sorry. So we should mention there is a second Muto. So
yes.
we
Yeah.
discover
Sorry,
that,
completely blown past this.
Yeah. So also, we find out that the military have another egg, basically another Muto egg.
That they thought was dormant.
Yeah, they thought it was dormant, so they put it where they keep all of America's nuclear waste, Nevada.
Vegas, baby.
So there's this cool sequence that doesn't really make a huge amount of sense, but anyway, these army guys go into these big underground vaults, they're checking all the radioactive material, and then they pull a door open, and the mountain has been completely just it's gone, leveled, and this giant other Muto is rampaging through very easily, just rampaging through Las Vegas, just crushing Vegas.
Yeah.
And it's then they establish that, so we've got a female Muto and a male Muto, and they're heading towards each other so they can bone.
Yeah, that's
in
it.
San Francisco. They're just looking for a nice romantic weekend to bone
in San Francisco, like a lot of people.
That's what most people are after.
And I thought that was a nice touch because it really adds. It's a simple thing that adds motivation to the Mutos.
It makes sense. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I understand why these monsters come, and they're not just like, oh, they're heading to San Francisco to destroy it, because they have a concept of what a good city
is.
to destroy on camera would be.
Because they're homophobic.
yeah.
So
They hate tech bros.
yeah. So now we've got two Mutos, a male and a female, heading towards each other. Godzilla's heading towards the two of them because he's the alpha predator.
Yeah.
He's gotta try and fucking dominate
Sort
these
this
guys.
out.
That's Ken Watanabe's theory anyway. He thinks that Godzilla is the primordial alpha who's meant to bring balance to the
Force.
natural world.
Yeah.
And the army's plan is they're going to put a bunch of nukes on a boat because the Mutos and Godzilla love radiation. And they're going to put a bunch of nukes out in a boat, and they're going to get all three of them to attack this boat offshore and then detonate the nukes. And Aaron Taylor Johnson is bomb man, so he sets up the mechanical timer because the Mutos and Godzilla affect electricity.
The Mutos can do EMPs.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun. I kind of like that. And it does give us some great visuals later on that we'll get to. But yeah, so they're all heading out and they're sending Aaron Taylor Johnson off with this bomb on a train. We get another kind of cool sequence over
The
this
Muto attacking the bridge.
the bridge. Yeah. So there's this.
This is the part of the movie where we're basically like, here's some exposition, here's a monster attack, here's
Yeah.
some exposition, here's a monster attack.
Yeah, there's not really a huge amount for us even to recap here. It is just that.
It
as you
is
said.
just that. Yeah, there's some cool sequences that us talking about would serve no purpose.
Yeah, we're not doing them any justice. So now we're basically just in San Francisco.
Yeah, just getting into the big final battle we've all been waiting for.
It's raining, as it's wanting to do in San Francisco. Elizabeth Olsen is working her job in the hospital. Yeah,
at hospital. She's Captain
working,
Hospital.
Working at hospital.
And then she finally gets the call from Aaron Taylor Johnson, and she's like, "I'm so scared, and I hope you're safe." And I didn't buy it at all.
No.
You all right? How's Sam?
You know, I've been calling you everywhere. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
I've got Sam with me, and
Great. Because I was thinking, I want to get
I
your
can't believe this is happening. Ford, are you okay? Are you doing okay?
I'm okay. Elle, please don't worry.
Baby, I'm so scared right now.
I know. I'm gonna be at the hospital by sunrise.
We'll talk more about
And
their
then-
relationship.
So basically, she gets rid of her kid for some reason.
Well,
puts
so
her
initially she wants to keep the kid with her because Aaron Taylor Johnson said he's coming for them.
right.
And then one of the other people is like, "You should really get your kid to evacuate from the city, you maniac." So she bows to social pressure and does. And then all the kids are in a school bus on the Golden Gate Bridge, which is the worst place to be because the Mutos and Godzilla have arrived.
Yeah, and we also have like these sick shots of the overhead shots of these of Godzilla, just his spine swimming through the water and
Yeah.
just flanked by battleships, which is just very
He
metal.
just moves through them, yeah.
And so then he comes and he just, I guess, because they wanted to do the T-Rex breaking through the cables, the fence from Jurassic Park, but they realized they couldn't get a fence big enough, so they're like, "Oh, we could just charge through the Golden Gate Bridge." That's the equivalent size thing for a T-Rex to Godzilla.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty spectacular scene of just him so
Reaching
easily.
out. Yeah, one of our greatest achievements of architecture, and it's nothing to him.
Yeah.
I did also like for a second, I thought there might have been a little reference, not even a reference, but there's a bit where the US government, the army, are launching like missiles at him. And then one of those missiles kind of skims on the bridge and like starts blowing up a bit of the bridge. And then Godzilla kind of puts his hand up, and I was like, "Yeah, he's Godzilla, friend to the children."
Yeah,
he's
like,
trying to
The military, if they had their way, they would have blown up all of the children on the bridge. It's only that Godzilla gets in the way of the
Godzilla's
missiles.
like, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
There's kids here."
But then Godzilla crashes through the bridge anyway.
Yeah.
So Godzilla crashes through the bridge. The Mutos are in San Francisco, and then they set off their EMP. So we have a great sequence here. It's very haunting, and really there's quite a lot of 9/11 imagery in this. But
Absolutely,
this in particular of just all of these airplanes, helicopters, and fighter jets are falling out of the sky and just crashing into buildings, crashing into the water. And then the Mutos fly in. And then we have Elizabeth Olsen in the city. She's dodging aircraft flying out of the sky. And then a giant Muto is coming up behind her. And then Godzilla is in front of her. And they're going to fight. And then we cut away again.
Yeah, is that where we have the shot of Elizabeth Olsen getting put in some sort of shelter?
Some sort of
and
shelter.
you just see like the shelter doors closing and Godzilla standing between like two skyscrapers.
As he's about to start fighting the Mutos.
Then so the male Muto has stolen a warhead from
the one that they were going to use as bait.
The one they were going to use as bait. The male Muto has stolen that as like a mating ritual for the female.
Yeah.
He's presented her with a nuclear warhead so she can feed off that radiation.
They have a little shift.
They have a little shift, and then we see that there's they have a weird tendrily nest that's like set up in the middle of the city. A lot of little gooey orbs of tiny Mutos in it, enough Mutos to annihilate the entire human race.
And I do remember even when I watched this the very first time being like, this is quite a scary premise because we've seen that these Mutos cannot be killed, and now we're seeing there's millions of baby Mutos about to be born. They would want to sort this situation out because if they get born, humanity is fecked.
So military have one last plan with a singular warhead, which is to...
Well, no,
that was after.
So
before.
what their plan is now, they're like, right, our warhead is there in San Francisco. We need to get to that warhead and either deactivate it or just get it as far away from the city as
now they
possible.
can't evacuate the city, and because Captain Bomb, Aaron Taylor Johnson, set up a mechanical bomb timer on it, there's no way to deactivate it remotely.
Yeah.
So we either deactivate it or we get it as far away from everyone as we can. They are going down into the nest.
So they have the Halo jump. This
The
is where we
Halo
get the
jump
Halo
sequence,
jump sequence.
yeah,
So,
which is
Aaron Taylor
great.
Johnson and the boys do a Halo jump into this city, and we see POV from the goggles of the guys parachuting of these giant monsters now scrapping. So
Yeah.
now we're into Godzilla, the Mutos, at night in San Francisco, battling it out while Army Taylor Johnson and the army guys have to sneak into the
call
nest.
him Army
I
Taylor
did,
Johnson?
I did. That wasn't even on purpose. And they have to sneak into the nest to try deactivate the bomb. So we get some just brilliant action now of Godzilla fighting the Mutos.
Finally, what
Yeah.
everyone paid to see.
Yeah.
While he's fighting the Mutos, they go down to get the bomb, but there's a cover on it. Aaron Taylor Johnson can't get the cover off, so they're like, right, plan B, we're going to take this warhead, we're going to get it out to the boat.
And just stick it out.
And just stick it out. But then before they leave, Aaron Taylor Johnson sees an overturned fuel truck near the Muto nest and blows it up, destroying all of her spawn.
Killing all the little baby Mutos.
Killing all the little baby Mutos. And then we get a genuinely really sad scene
Yeah.
of the female Muto. Like, she sees the explosion and then she goes over and she's like, you killed all my fucking kids.
Mourning all of her unborn children.
She looks like she's going to fucking cry. I was crying. I was like, oh, this poor lady.
And then she realizes the fucking army guys have done this, so she's
Gonna
going to
get
get
them.
And Godzilla, he's been taking an awful pounding.
Godzilla
like, the
has
two
been-
Mutos have been on Godzilla.
Yeah,
just
Godzilla's
wrecking
been
him.
wrecking him, trying to fight him.
We're like, what's he going to do now? What's
Well-
he going to do now?
What does Godzilla always have up his sleeve when he gets into a pinch?
We just see and hear blue lights illuminating from his tail, working its way up his tail, up his back, and then he just gives all of the atomic breath straight at the Muto, and it's great.
It
It's
is
such a
sick,
good
yeah.
reveal. Like, I remember being there in the cinema being like, I've been waiting so long for the atomic breath, hoping that it was going to look cool, and it looks great. They executed it brilliantly.
But yeah, so female Muto is going after Aaron Taylor Johnson. He gets the nuke on the boat. He's heading out, and Godzilla eventually, after taking a beating from the two Mutos, falls down. Aaron Taylor Johnson's on the boat. Female Muto's coming for him. Takes out his handgun,
Saving Private Ryan,
as a
Tom Hanks.
gesture of resistance.
Yeah.
Whereas Godzilla is falling down into a building because even he's bait from this.
Well, because what happened was he managed to finish off the flying Muto by flinging around and tail swiping it into a building.
Yes.
But then that building collapses on top of
Yeah.
Godzilla. So it's like, geez, Godzilla's out of the picture. It's just Aaron Taylor Johnson on this boat heading out to sea, pointing a pistol at this giant monster. What are we going to do?
Godzilla saves the day. He finds the strength within, like any good hero.
Yeah.
And he manages to get the Muto at the last minute, holds her jaws open, and atomic breaths down her throat.
Yeah. Until her head just kind of falls off.
Until her head kind of falls off, and then Aaron Taylor Johnson has kind of resigned himself to dying in the nuke. And Godzilla needs to have a little sleep because
Yeah.
he's very, very
He's
tired.
beat.
So he falls asleep in the bay. Surprise, the military have come in at the end. Aaron Taylor Johnson is saved at the last minute. And so basically, now everyone likes Godzilla.
Yeah, we see Godzilla wakes up. We see on TV screens that the headline is King of the Monsters, Savior of San Francisco? Question mark.
I mean, arguable, but
Yeah.
you know.
And then he just he does a big roar, swims off into the sea.
I
And
did
that's the
like,
end.
so the whole thing is that he is literally like sleeping in the middle of downtown San Francisco. And I like the idea of like cutting to a news report being like, week 3 of everyone being very, very quiet. so
Yeah.
that Godzilla can get his rest.
And we do get to see Aaron Taylor Johnson does
Reunite
reunite
with his family. Who cares?
We really, at this stage,
Roll
you don't care,
credits.
we don't care. The important thing is Godzilla.
Godzilla's the king of the monsters.
King of the monsters. So
And
that's Godzilla.
That's the story of Godzilla. So what do we want to kind of talk about more in depth on that?
Well, so yeah, I do want to say that like it's very obvious that the biggest influence on Gareth Edwards in this movie was Spielberg, because the movie's very Jaws, it's very Close Encounters, and particularly very Jurassic Park. I talked about
Yeah.
like the fence stuff earlier, but there's also like the very first shot we kind of see after the opening credit sequence is this silver and blue helicopter flying over a jungle mountain, and it's like, did they actually get the same helicopter from Jurassic Park for this? It's so on the nose.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's just a whole bunch of stuff stylistically, like taking the goggles off and like seeing it through car windows. It's like, this is all just Jurassic Park stuff.
I suppose that would come down to like Spielberg being the guy for out of this world experience
Yeah, completely.
for filmmakers of Gareth Edwards' generation.
And also the way Spielberg is able to, in his blockbusters, put a lot of horror and sci-fi elements into his movies. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of there's a lot of horror in Jurassic Park, and I think this movie definitely tries to do a lot of horror elements. There's a lot of suspenseful scenes. A lot of it's very dark and ominous and eerie. I guess then my kind of issues kind of start with the fact that like there's like the start of the movie, they're doing this very kind of good, serious sci-fi mystery thing with Ken Watanabe and Sally
Yeah.
Hawkins about like, what is this monster? And then Bryan Cranston as well is trying to figure out the mystery of like, what is it all? And then half an hour in, it's like, oh, it's giant monsters. And then the mystery's just kind of gone.
Yeah, that's it.
And then like the Hawaii sequence and stuff is like, this is like perfect disaster movie stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's also the horror kind of stuff. So it's like, I kind of wish maybe it does a lot of different genres, and then the family drama stuff as well. It does a lot of different genres pretty well. And maybe I'm like, should they have leaned in to one more specifically?
I would definitely think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I did feel like there was a lot of threads that were all over the place in this film that really has a solid unifying through line, which is just Godzilla.
Yeah. I kind of feel like maybe if, because I really like the disaster movie aspect to it, and I
Yeah.
feel like maybe
Do
if
you-
it had all been, you leave out the military stuff
Yeah.
and have it be Aaron Taylor Johnson is with his family on the ground.
He's just some guy who's got to get back to his family.
lost in this, trying to just protect his
be
family
an
while
everyman.
these giant monsters are fighting around him.
Do you think, because when I was researching this, I came across this, so the 1954 Godzilla, the
Yeah,
first one,
yeah.
that is about the atomic bomb. It's
Yeah.
about what if you were one day just going about your business and this force of destruction, the likes of which you'd never seen, came around.
That you were completely powerless against.
Completely powerless against. Do you think that this modern Godzilla is taking that kind of approach with sort of post 9/11 terrorism
I think
vibe?
it's 100% trying to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how well a lot of it came off for me.
Yeah.
I
I think if you were trying to go for something like that, you'd stick more to on the ground.
yeah,
Because
and
this was from something I'd read a while ago. That was basically like, if you look at buildings getting destroyed pre 9/11 in movies, and then after, the big one is that it's like, we know what it looks
yeah,
like when
there's
buildings fall
dust
down now.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And Godzilla, like when the buildings fall, there's dust everywhere.
Yeah.
Dust and smoke all over the place. So yeah, it is. The imagery is definitely all there. But I'm not sure what sort of point it is trying to make about
No, because
any of this. It's
I
not
also
like when you watch The Dark Knight and you're like, oh, he's doing a post 9/11 thing, but it's all kind of, it's a lot about the Patriot Act. And
Yeah.
like, you know, Nolan's point is that we shouldn't be giving governments this much surveillance power just to fight terrorism, and he's toying with how much of it's justified.
yeah.
This is evoking a lot of 9/11 stuff in Godzilla, but I
And
don't think
not
it
really
has a larger
tackling it.
point. Yeah.
If I had one central criticism of the film that I think ultimately held it back completely, it is Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen.
Agreed.
Well, I had heard at the time, so I hadn't seen this until the other day. So I'd heard 10 years ago how mad people were about Bryan Cranston dying in the
Yeah.
beginning of the film because he was so much in the trailer.
Yeah.
And initially I was like, oh, well, it'll probably be a part of the story and people were just being a bit oversensitive as film audiences can be. And then I saw it and I was like, oh, he's just gone.
Yeah.
And now it's Aaron Taylor-Johnson, and it's like they had already set up a protagonist
Yeah.
in Bryan Cranston. We got to see him way before any of this stuff ever happened.
We see him losing his wife.
We see him lose his wife. He is I'm going to say it. I don't think it's controversial. He's a better actor than Aaron Taylor-Johnson.
Better
in this
actor
film.
than most people.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's controversial. He's an
and
amazing
then,
actor.
And then you see when we cut to 15 years later and you see Aaron Taylor-Johnson, you see he's like completely lost it. So I'm like, this is your main guy.
Yeah.
But instead they're like, no, but you should care about, and I wrote it down because I thought it was the epitome of, like, Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen in this film have like a kind of cardboard relationship.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. Everything is going fine until Godzilla shows up. There's no real drama to them outside of Godzilla.
But just that he has to keep going
He has to
away.
keep
He's
going.
only just home from a tour and he has to
Yeah.
go back to Japan for his
Like,
dad.
the perfect example I wrote is that there's a point where they cut to the two of them laughing and drinking wine. And they were laughing and drinking wine for so long that I was like, I would have loved to have heard the joke here.
Yeah,
Like,
right,
I would have
right.
loved to have spent some time with
Yeah.
you. But it's just like, I love being middle class.
Turns you around nose to nose. He says, at ease, Lieutenant. Yeah, I missed your laugh.
Yeah, no, I completely agree because it's like my issue. I like the idea actually of killing off Bryan Cranston early. I think that's a bold move. But the problem is then if you've given me half an hour of Bryan Cranston, if you're gonna get rid of Bryan Cranston, you better have someone of Bryan Cranston level to follow through the rest of the film. Now, obviously, you get Godzilla for the rest of the movie, but there's no human character who's written or acted as well as Bryan Cranston's character
Yeah.
is. But the question would be, tell me something about Elizabeth Olsen's character.
She works at hospital.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Oh,
I don't
this
know
is
what her
even-
wants or her anything about her
The
at all.
Even with Aaron Taylor-Johnson, they set up very early on that he is a bomb specialist. Bryan Cranston has a line. He's like, the building bomb business must be booming. And then Aaron Taylor-Johnson's like, I don't build bombs, I defuse them. Then they set up this very important thing with the bomb, which he ultimately does not do anything with.
Doesn't defuse any bombs.
They talk about how there's a cover on the bomb, and then he tries to get the cover off and he can't. And it's like, anyone on that soldier army could have fucking taken the warhead out in the boat. Like, it's got, like, there's nothing to hold on to with these characters.
And it's just like I feel like then when you have Elizabeth Olsen in the city and it's like they just cut to her every once in a while, like cowering in the shelter, and I'm like, we could have a scene maybe where we've established that she works in a hospital with
Maybe
patients.
she's helping people.
Maybe she's helping. Someone's injured and she could be
She
talking
doesn't do
to them.
any medical practice. in this
Nothing.
film.
So there's a perfect opportunity for her to be, helping someone out while all this stuff is going on, and then she could say something about like, a character building moment about like how she struggles with her husband being away all the time, or
Yeah.
just anything. Give me something about her. But they don't.
Yeah, it's very it's boring.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the same thing where, again, the only other film I've seen in the MonsterVerse is Godzilla vs. Kong.
Right.
And immediately after I finished watching Godzilla vs. Kong, my first thought was I should make a fan edit where I just cut out all of the human characters, or
Yeah.
most of them. It's been like a recurring complaint. I know Skull Island is meant to be a bit different.
It is better in that regard, but that's mostly just like they put so many great charismatic
Yeah, yeah.
actors in there. It's like you got Sam Jackson, you got John Goodman. They can't not be engaging. They're
Yeah.
just too good.
But like, and I think a huge detriment to Godzilla 2014 was that last year we got to see Godzilla -1.
Yes.
Because Godzilla -1 has a human story so good that for a solid half hour in the cinema, I genuinely forgot that like Godzilla was going to come into it. And then when Godzilla shows up, I was like, oh no.
So yeah, a point that I want to make on this is that the complaint that people had was that there wasn't enough Godzilla in the Godzilla movie. I would say there's actually plenty of Godzilla in the movie. The problem is just that when Godzilla's off screen, the characters aren't as engaging. So, Jurassic Park contains less than 15 minutes total screen time of the dinosaurs and only 6 minutes of T-Rex.
Yeah.
The shark in Jaws doesn't appear on screen until an hour 21 and has approximately 4 minutes of screen time after that. Godzilla has 11 minutes 16 seconds of screen time, so more than the T-Rex and the shark in Jaws combined.
Jaws the shark.
But the difference is that the characters in those movies are great and you want to hang around with them all the time. Like the best scene in Jaws for me is still the three of them drunk on the boat comparing their scars, and then Quint does his monologue about the
black eyes like a doll's eye.
It's float the ship sinks and they're floating, the sharks pick them up. Stuff.
There is no moment like that in this. Yeah. Like, I don't care for the Monarch scientists. I cared for Bryan Cranston a little bit, but he's dead.
Yeah.
I care for Aaron Taylor Johnson's family in the sense that it would be bad if they died, but I wouldn't miss them.
Yeah, this is pretty much it. Yeah, so my overall point is that it's there wasn't that there was too little Godzilla. It's just that the bits that weren't Godzilla
weren't that good
enough.
Now, before we get to our final wrap up, I would like to pitch a conspiracy theory that I formulated while watching this film.
All right, go for it.
I think that Godzilla 2014, and you have to go at me on this, you have to trust me.
Okay.
Is a piece of propaganda for liberalism as practiced by the American Democratic Party.
Okay, here we go.
So, Aaron Taylor Johnson, he's in the army.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty right-wing, that's pretty butch. But he's not. He doesn't build bombs, he diffuses them. Oh. He's in the woke army.
Oh.
You see?
Yeah.
He's a pacifist. Aaron Taylor Johnson wants to connect with his dad, but he can't because his dad is an InfoWars conspiracy freak.
Wow.
He's got clippings on the wall. Can't do it. The conspiracy theories that ultimately prove to be true.
They do, yeah.
Aaron Taylor Johnson meets not a government agency or a civilian organization that are combating Godzilla, but an NGO.
Of course.
And this NGO saves the world, so they think, by performing an abortion on the Muto egg.
Wow.
And they're considered heroes for doing this. So the Mutos represent a heteronormative traditional couple who want to have sex for the purposes of reproduction, which cannot be allowed to happen.
Wow.
This makes them the enemy. Aaron Taylor Johnson turns down a chance to go home to his family so that he can continue to work and benefit the economy, like any good American Democrat citizen should. I know that one's not as good. Aaron Taylor Johnson, and in his last minute acts of heroism, performs our second abortion of the film. That's 2 abortions for the savior of the world. Now here's one I couldn't get to the end on my own, so you're gonna have to help me. I have 2 possible ones for this. What does Godzilla represent in this depiction of liberalism as practiced by the American Democratic Party? Is Godzilla either a dream of call-in culture, where Democrats think that they can incorporate an inarguably destructive social force into their party and use it for their own agenda? I've written down here, primordial alpha male, Andrew Tate. Or Godzilla, who is smooth and genitalless, is the liberal desire to eliminate authentic sexuality, shown by the Muto's egg sac hanging between their legs, in favor of a modest, dry, and sanitized sexuality, as shown by Godzilla's atomic breath going down their throat.
That's quite good, that second one. Yeah. I might say as well that it's just Godzilla represents just morals, and that morals will always
Morals
win
will
out.
always
if
win.
morals are on your side, you will win any argument. Doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, so that was it. I don't know. I saw
That's very good. I
that
enjoyed
started
that a
from
lot.
I made a joke about like they've just aborted this muto, and then they
Yeah.
did it again, and I was like, maybe this is maybe the elites are sending messages into my brain.
Yeah, that's very good. I very much enjoyed that.
Okay, so we start wrapping
So
up.
to wrap up, would you consider this movie good, not great?
I would consider this maybe absolutely good, not great.
Definitely good, not great.
Yeah, I was about to say the pinnacle. I don't think it is the pinnacle. It's one of those things that it's standing on a knife's edge, but leaning one way more than the other.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that overall, I'd probably go like it's a strong 3, probably 3.5 out of 5.
I'd go for an even 3.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
I
fair.
I had more fun making jokes about the liberal propaganda
Sure.
in it than I did, say, watching any of the human characters.
And I should say as well that when I went to see this in the cinema,
I-
I did enjoy it more than watching it on TV at home. the
I
other
would
night.
absolutely think seeing this in the
Yeah,
cinema would have been
the
way
sense
better.
of scale and spectacle is fantastic, and I really think Gareth Edwards has, through his whole career, like some of the biggest shots in Star Wars are in Rogue One, his
Yeah,
Star Wars
yeah.
movie. Everything looks enormous, and he's actually, to tie it all into what I was saying earlier, he's going to be directing the new Jurassic Park movie. They're doing a Jurassic Park 7, and he's going to direct it.
Is this still
and
the Chris Pratt Jurassic Park?
I think they're going to do a new trilogy. I'm not
Please,
sure.
I
please,
couldn't finish
we're-
Jurassic World.
Yeah, so, but I think that this movie shows, and Monsters showed, that he understands how to shoot the dinosaurs anyway to make them look big and scary,
Absolutely.
and he should be a good fit. So hopefully we get a good Jurassic Park movie out of this.
Yeah, and then obviously coming up next we've got Godzilla versus Kong. They are now buddies.
Yeah. So are you intrigued? I should just ask to wrap up. Are you intrigued to watch the other ones that you haven't seen?
I suppose I am. The only thing is I'm more excited to see Kong Skull Island. I'm a bit of
Yeah.
a Kong head in general.
Yeah.
Famously on the who's better Godzilla versus Kong debate, I fall into the Kong camp.
Well, now, okay, so we should preface this by saying it's not a who's better, it's who would win in a fight. And I'm sorry, but Godzilla wins all day in an actual fight. Like, he's just...
Godzilla doesn't have a magic staff.
But,
Oh,
they-
but-
that's it. They had to give Kong a magic axe in order for it to be an even match.
Yeah, and it was. But yeah, I'm excited to watch the rest of them, and I'm very excited for Kong.
Godzilla X
Godzilla
Kong, the
X
new
Kong.
empire.
Also, as just the final words of the podcast, the MonsterVerse supports the Hollow Earth theory.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, we'll wrap up there. Godzilla 2014 is officially
Good, not great.
Let them fight.